Welcome to the MicroLife Café. I'm your host, Sarah from MicroLife Fertilizers. We're talking all things organic horticulture and beyond, so pull up a chair and pour up a cup with us. On today's podcast, we're talking about the power of mulch, compost, and organic matter for building healthier soils, especially in Houston's challenging climate. We're joined by Ian from Nature's Way Resources to break down which materials work best in heat, humidity, and heavy rain, how homeowners should properly apply them, and simple steps anyone can take this spring to improve soil health, conserve water, and create stronger, more resilient landscapes. Hello, Ian. Thank you so much for coming in today. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do for a living?
Like you said, my name is Ian Ferguson. I work for Nature's Way Resources. I'm the CEO, and we manufacture 100% organic landscaping materials such as compost, mulches, and soil blends. We try to focus on soil health through the biology of our products, and we practice environmental stewardship. Also, we recycle green waste. We take in leaves, grass, horse manure, tree trimmings, anything that we want to divert from the landfill, and we try and recycle those, and that's how we get our feedstocks for the mulches, compost, and some of our soil blends. We also have a nursery, vegetables, trees, citrus, native varieties, which we like to push, and that's kind of what we do at Nature's Way.
I love it. I think that's all very important for our environment. So let's kind of just focus on the organic mulch compost situation. What exactly are you guys selling at Nature's Way Resources in terms of like soil amendments?
In terms of soil amendments, we have two different types of compost, and we also have a remineralizer, which is a trace element package. The first compost is our leaf mold compost. That's what we built our company on. It's tried and true. It has 4 ingredients only: leaves, grass, horse manure, and food waste. It's composted in the static pile method for a minimum of 12 months, preferably 18 months. We also have our fungal-based compost, which is old mulch. So we compost our mulches 9 to 12 months, but once they pass that 12 months time, they're kind of like a hybrid product. They're a little bit of mulch, it's a little bit of compost. It's not really good at either one. So we go ahead and continue to compost it out for at least another year, preferably 2, and that makes your fungal-based compost. And we call it fungal-based because of all this, the woody material that comes from the mulch. It gives that's extra food source for your fungus. And then we have our remineralizer, which is a combination of 3 different mineral sands. That's your trace element package. That's green sand, granite sand, and basalt sand.
Awesome. So let's focus on mulch a little bit. What types of mulch do you think work best for Houston's heat, humidity, and heavy rains? And what are the benefits of people putting mulch in their garden? I know for starters that it definitely helps with keeping the weeds out, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. What mulches work best? That's going to be your composted native hardwood mulches. Anything that's a variety of trees put together. It's better than anything that's individualized, like cedar mulch or bark mulch. Bark mulch is water resistant. It it resists decomposition just because of the bark's protective layer of your trees, and it's very prone to washout. The reason composted mulches work better, like I said, one, it's like a conglomerate of all your trees, so you're getting a wider variety of nutrients. The way it's been composted, that makes things mesh together better, so it's not going to wash out. But purposes of mulch, they got 4 main purposes. You already mentioned one, which is weed suppression. Another one is water retention. You want to help regulate soil temperatures. That's in the winter and in your summer. Then also helps prevent erosion. We have heavy storms that come through here through Houston, so the more you can protect your gardens, the better off you'll be.
Half of the time, I feel like people don't really understand mulch. It took me a while to understand it. Why is it so important that people do organic mulch versus the dyed mulch, which I see everywhere?
Dyed mulches, they look great. Can't deny that, but your blacks and reds, they're not natural in nature. The material they use to get these colors to stick is often extremely poor quality mulch. A lot of times they use like pallet wood or anything that's extremely dry. And the reason they do this is because they want it to absorb the coloring, to make the color stick. But so what does that do for your plants? Anything that's really woody that hasn't been composted, or like I said, comes from a pallet, it's going to be extremely high in carbon. So when you put that on your plants or around your plants, it's going to rob nitrogen from your soil trying to decompose instead of letting that be available for your plants for uptake. So you're doing your plants a disservice using those type of materials.
That is such a great, helpful answer. I can't even tell you how many yards that I am seeing this colored mulch in. So that's really important information.
I forgot to mention,
Mm-hmm.
those colors are also extremely prone to washing out. And so you can get stained colors on your concrete, and the mulch just, it'll fade and won't look the same over time. As where your composted mulches hold its color because it's a natural color that's there through the composting process.
Yeah, I can't imagine those dyes being anything good for your landscape or going into our waterways either. So, how thick should mulch actually be, and what are the risks of using too much mulch or too little?
So when you apply mulch, me personally, I like to aim for that 3 inch mark.
Mm-hmm.
We like to recommend 2 to 4 inches. So 3 is right there in the middle. What happens if you use too little? The mulch doesn't work properly. So again, your four main reasons for mulch are weed suppression, water retention, thermal regulation, and washout. But if it's too thin, weeds that land on top of your mulch are going to be able to germinate and possibly work their way through it. The way mulch prevents weeds from germinating is it's kind of a woodier material on top.
Mm-hmm.
It acts like an insulative layer or a blanket. So anything that falls on it, it's going to be an inhospitable environment. So it won't be able to germinate very well. And if it's too thin, it will be able to get down to the soil and start sprouting that way. If it's also too thin, weeds that may be underneath are going to be able to push through as well, rather than it being kind of suffocated from light being prevented from going through if it's too thin.
Mm-hmm.
If it's too thick, you can get other problems such as like when people volcano around trees or plants,
Right.
the base of your tree or plant could have too much moisture in it and make it prone to rotting or diseases because there's too much moisture being held in.
Can you share with the audience just the volcano mulching is something I hear a lot of people have a problem with. Can you just describe like what a volcano mulch looks like?
Yeah. So when people are volcano mulching, it's a practice that happened in the past that was just spread.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really understand why, but what happens is people put their mulch up to the base of the tree and it
Okay.
covers the root flare.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on trees, you don't want to cover the root flare. You want to make sure that's exposed. And so you want to keep an air gap of about 1 inch off that. So your tree can breathe properly. Same thing with your plants.
What is the difference between mulch and compost, and how should homeowners be using each?
So they're different products with different purposes. Mulches, that's like your protective layer. It's like a blanket or an insulative layer.
Mm-hmm.
And compost is a soil amendment. It's there to provide soil health or to improve soil health and get your soil biology back on track. So compost is a soil builder. So we use our compost. It's 4 ingredients:
Mm-hmm.
the leaves, grass, horse manure, and food waste. And it's compost over a long time. That provides a large fungal network, a lot of fungal hyphae, and you get to incorporate that back into your soil, improving your soil's health. And that's where, what I like to say is like the foundation of your plants are the roots. So you're making an environment that encourages root growth. And when you encourage root growth, you have a more hardy plant that's disease resistant, drought resistant, pest resistant. And yeah, that's why you want to focus on soil health, is trying to get those roots to grow.
How would you say compost improves soil biology different from fertilizer? We're obviously talking about fertilizer all the time here, but how would you say like compost, improves the soil biology?
I think the biggest difference between fertilizer and composts are how quickly the nutrients are made available and the longevity of the nutrients. Fertilizers are typically for a quicker response, and compost is more for the longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Fertilizer is quick nutrient uptake, and compost is a soil amendment that focuses on like the soil health. It helps the soil food web, so that's all your fungal hyphae, your nematodes, that's your bacteria that's in there, and it's these organisms inside this soil food web that helps actually make these nutrients available for your plant to uptake.
For someone starting with poor or compacted soil, what is the simplest first step they can take this spring to fix that?
A simple first step or a passive way to do things, I guess, one for your lawn, would be put a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch layer of our fine leaf mold compost down and spread it out. And really, that's it. Over time, it'll start settling through your grass. Your grass will grow up through it. And when it rains, the nutrients and I guess some of the soil biology will start making its way down into the soil. Over time, you'll start seeing earthworms come back and loosen up the soil that way. If you're doing it for your garden, again, a very passive way is just to put it on top. You can almost use the compost like a mulch, and then you don't have to do anything else. If you want to take a slightly more aggressive way, aka more labor intensive, for your lawn, I would always recommend doing a core aeration first, then coming back over and raking in your compost. That way you're actually forcing the compost down into your soil profile, and it'll get to work a little bit quicker, and you're just physically opening up some pore space on those compacted soils. If you're doing it with your garden, tilling's not the best method, but I still say you can use a shovel to kind of like disc it in almost, trying to disturb the soil as least amount as possible, because we know tilling now is a bad practice as it destroys everything as it's breaking it up.
Yeah.
But if you're adding organic material back in there, you can negate some of those negative effects.
How much mulch and compost helps conserve water as temperatures start rising?
Well, mulch acts like an insulative layer. So when the mulch dries out, that creates that layer and it protects the water underneath. And so that's why you need a minimum of 2 inches. Because if it's less than 2 inches, the heat can start getting through that layer. It's just like your house. If you have thin insulation, the heat and everything can get out or in depending on which way you're going. So appropriate mulch layers really key to maintaining that water moisture. And then on the flip side, if it's too thick, 4 to 6 inches thick, your mulch is all that's going to get the water, especially during light rains. So it's actually, trying to find that sweet spot. So
We've already talked about this for mulch, but can compost help with weed suppression and pest management naturally?
yes, it definitely can. Compost makes a healthier soil, which in turn gives you a more robust plant. And when your plant's more robust, it has the ability to fight off pests and diseases, just like a healthy human does. If a human is healthy, they don't get sick as often. So when your plants are healthy, they don't get sick as often. So how does that actually translate when you got a pest that's trying to nibble on your plants? Well, if you have a healthy plant, you might have a little bit more lignin or something in your plant, so it's a little bit harder for your pest to chew through. And so if it's harder to chew this plant than another plant, your pest is going to go to the easier plant to eat. And so that's one way it provides a natural benefit for pest suppression. Very similar to disease. If you have a healthier plant, it's not going to get sick as often because it has all the proper nutrients it needs from the soil. So if you have a good foundation for your plants, a healthy soil, it has good root foundation or root growth, and you're going to have a healthy top half of your plant.
Lovely. That is such a good answer. So let's talk a little bit about Houston's wacky weather. How does organic matter help soil handle Houston's intense rain events and flooding?
Organic matter provides soil structure.
Mhm.
It helps open up compacted soils so you have more pore space. If you have more pore space, you have better water holding capacity, and it helps prevent some runoff. In heavy rains, the soil will start acting like a giant sponge, which when it absorbs water, it can later percolate down into your water table and hopefully even further down into your aquifers instead of runoff. So the healthier soils are, the slower your runoff is, the more it can absorb and better use that water.
It's almost like our landscapes can help prevent flooding in Houston.
Yes, if everybody gets on board, it will minimize the effects that flooding have here.
Very important for everybody listening. So, how often should homeowners reapply mulch and compost throughout this growing season?
It kind of depends. I know people love hearing that, but it's really what your starting point is in your soil condition. Is it extremely clay heavy? Is it compacted, or is it extremely sandy? So how much material do you have to add? We try and shoot for roughly 20% organic matter in your soils. So once you achieve that, it really depends. I guess the next variable will be, what are you growing? Is it something that is extremely heavy feeders like vegetables or tomatoes like that? You would have to probably reapply it twice, maybe 3 times a year.
Mhm.
Also, the quantity of plants. If you have a very dense planting of plants, it's going to take up nutrients faster than a sparsely populated bed. And then, of course, the variety of plants kind of matter.
What about like composting your lawn?
We 100% recommend that. We use our fine leaf mold compost. We screen that out to a 3/8 minus. So it's fine enough to kind of sift through the grass blades when you're raking it in, and you won't see any bits of the compost sitting on top.
Mhm.
And we definitely recommend that for your lawn because a lot of soils around Houston are extremely sandy or clay heavy, depending on which side of I-10 you're on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Ian, thank you so much for coming in today. Are there any final recommendations you have for people working with their soil this spring?
Just don't overcomplicate things. Try and do what Mother Nature did. She figured this out long before we did. So the more you
Mm-hmm.
can replicate what she does, I think the better off you'll be in general. And whenever I'm doing my own gardens, I try and think of what encourages deep root growth, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really one of the predominant factors that gives you a healthy plant is when it has healthy roots.
Absolutely. And where can people go to Nature's Way resources? Where are you guys located?
We are located in Conroe, just off of 1488 and 45. That's where you can buy bulk or bag, but we also have about 35 different vendors in the Houston area where you can pick up our bag products.
Awesome. And what about your website?
www.natureswayresources.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Ian. We'll have you back on real soon.
Thank you.